Have you ever wondered what actually stops the government from creating a law that's just completely unfair to you? Well, today we're going to unpack the answer, and it's something called India's fundamental rights. These aren't just fancy words in a dusty law book. They are, for real, your personal constitutional shield.
Think about it this way. Imagine your family has a bunch of rules, right? But what if none of those rules actually protected you from being treated unfairly? Yeah, that doesn't sound very good, does it? Now, just scale that idea up to the whole country. Our Constitution sets up these non-negotiable rules to protect you from the most powerful player in the game, the state. And those rules? Those are your fundamental rights.
So, here's what we've got on tap for this explainer. First, we'll talk about what this constitutional shield really is. Then, we'll take a look at the long road it took to even get these rights. We're going to dive deep into the heart of equality, find out who the guardian of these rights is, and then, most importantly, tie it all back to why this stuff really truly matters to you.
All right, let's jump right into our first section, your constitutional shield. So what in the world are these fundamental rights that we hear about all the time?
Okay, so at their core, these are guaranteed civil liberties, and they're locked right into Part 3 of our Constitution. They're called fundamental for a really simple reason. Without them, it's pretty much impossible to have a life of dignity, peace, or personal growth. They're the absolute foundation for what we call all-round development. Basically, everything you need to thrive as a person.
In fact, Part 3 is so important, it's often called the Magna Carta of India. Now think about that for a second. The original Magna Carta from way back in 1215 was this game-changing document that, for the very first time, told a king, hey, there are limits to your power. Our fundamental rights do that exact same job today. Pretty cool, right? So where did these rights even come from? I mean, they didn't just appear out of nowhere. As we're about to see, they are the result of a long, hard-won victory that was inspired by centuries of people fighting for their freedom all over the world. You know, this whole journey starts way back in 1215 with the Magna Carta. Then you can fast forward through the English Bill of Rights, the French Revolution, and what you see is this global wave building up, this idea of individual liberty. And that wave, well, it eventually crashed on our shores, inspiring our own freedom fighters to demand a Bill of Rights in the 1928 Nehru Report. It's all connected. Now, to really understand the power packed into these rights, let's zoom in on the very first one. You could even say it's the most foundational of them all, the right to equality, which is spelled out for us in Article 14. You see, the right to equality wasn't put first by accident. It was placed there for a very specific reason. Its main goal was to start healing and dismantling the centuries of deep-seated social inequality that existed in India. It was about establishing a brand new principle that every single citizen is equal in the eyes of the law. No exceptions. And this is where it gets really fascinating. Article 14 actually combines two powerful ideas from different parts of the world. On one side, you've got equality before law, which comes from Britain. Think of it like a shield. It tells the state what it can't do. It can't give anyone special treatment. Then, on the other side, you have equal protection of laws, an idea from the US. This is more like a sword. It tells the state what it must do, actively step in to make sure things are fair. So one stops unfairness, and the other promotes fairness. Now this brings us to a really crucial point. These rights are incredibly powerful, for sure, but they aren't unlimited. They're not absolute, which means there can be reasonable restrictions. They're justiciable, which is just a legal way of saying they have teeth. You can actually go to court if they're violated. And like we just saw, some are negative, telling the state hands off, while others are positive, telling the state to get involved. And it's important to note, most of them can be suspended during a national emergency. Okay, so this leads to a super important question, right? A shield is only useful if it can actually stop an attack. So who is the guardian? Who makes sure this shield we've been talking about is never, ever broken? And the answer is the judiciary, the courts. Through this incredible power called judicial review, the Supreme Court and our high courts act as the ultimate protectors of our rights. They literally have the power to look at any law and say, nope, this one's no good, and strike it down if it messes with your fundamental rights. So how does that actually work? Well, it's pretty straightforward. The government passes a law, the courts take a look at it, and they ask one simple but massive question. Does this law violate a fundamental right? If the answer is yes, that law is declared void. It's basically a constitutional checkmate.
All right, so let's bring all this back home. We've talked history, we've talked law, but why does any of this really matter in your actual day-to-day life?
You know, the source material puts it beautifully.
We breathe our fundamental rights in and out every day, from morning to night, often without even realizing it. The freedom to speak your mind, to practice whatever faith you choose, to live and work wherever you want, to be treated as an equal, these are not just abstract ideas. They are the invisible architecture that shapes every single day of your life.
So we want to leave you with this final thought. Our rights are guaranteed. They're protected by that constitutional shield. But are they permanent? Remember, the Constitution can be changed, and the true meaning of these rights is debated all the time. It's a good reminder that these freedoms aren't just set in stone. They're a living, breathing legacy that every single one of us has to understand